Genshin 5.0 quite literally changed everything, and the launch of 5.0 marks the day history will forever be changed. By that I mean the second wind of Genshin. Things have been pretty rough for Genshin over the last few months. A lot of issues with the community. I mean, now there's another boycott going on. I closed my eyes and that happened. That's pretty interesting. And that will be a discussion for a different day. We need to talk about just how big of a deal this 5.0 release is, as there's so much to discuss, as we need to talk about why they did this, and is this because of Wuthering Waves, what's going on with Genshin. Even Dewey himself came out and gave a very heartwarming speech. I've heard a lot of people have very interesting takes about this, and we'll get into that at the end of the video. But before that, let's talk about all of the changes coming to 5.0. Well, some of the important ones at least, because there's just way too much to cover here. First thing I would like to point out, a lot of people seem to think that Genshin has fallen off somewhat, and that isn't exactly true. Now, you could say for the long-term players, Genshin doesn't quite look after them, and I do agree with that statement. However, that does change this year, as we are getting some massive changes specifically to the artifact system. Changes that will have lasting impact on the game itself. But before we get into the details, something I want to discuss. I remember a while ago when some of the Genshin hype was falling off, people used to comment on the numbers of the Genshin livestream views on YouTube, for example, and I just have to say this one absolutely blew it out of the water, because if we have a look, just 3 days ago, this livestream has 2.2 million views. Just to put that in perspective, the Fontaine had about 1.2 to this date. It's had about a year to get 1.x million views. So with that compared to 2.2 in only a few days, I know not many views come after like the initial period, but it's absolutely insane. Genshin hasn't cracked 2 million views on a live stream in a long time. Is this because they're afraid of Wuthering Waves, or is it purely because of the release of 5.0? 5.0 is a long-awaited region. Everyone has been wanting to know exactly what's been going on with 5.0, how's Natlan going to be, and it's already off to a rough start, since not a lot of people have been very happy with how Hoyoverse have been handling the situation, like the boycott I mentioned earlier, because they're not happy with how they're presenting Natlan, because it's a bit odd. That's a whole can of worms, we won't talk about it for now. And before we move on, I have to say that the Genshin 5.0 livestream was a whopping 2 hours and 12 minutes or something absurd like that. I definitely ain't watching all of that because that's way too long. And coming from the last live stream, which was just 36 minutes and I think barely cracked 1 million views, and even the 4.0 live stream wasn't nearly this long, it goes to show how much effort Hoyoverse is putting in, as they really want Genshin to stay relevant, which is why they're probably putting some of the changes we're going to talk about. So we're going to quickly go over the banners. Again, it doesn't stop here because they're hitting hard. They have Molani, which is the first featured 5-star of the new region of Natlan, alongside Kazuha and Kachina, which is obviously another 4-star, which, another new character, which we're also getting for free in this patch. Genshin is suddenly becoming a lot more generous, which is something we love to see. We'll touch on a few of the small things in the live stream in just a moment. And then the following banner will be the Raiden Shogun. It seems that Hoyoverse is really trying hard to bring everyone back to the game. They have some of the biggest name characters in all of Genshin to kickstart Natlan. With all new updates and initial region launches, we have the main story quests and, typical new bosses. I think we have 2 new bosses, new enemy variants. We do have new 4-star weapons, which are forgeable, which is pretty cool, I will say that. A lot of, generic updates. We have the new characters, Kinich, Molani, and Kachina. All very cool looking, can't wait to play them. They all seem to be adding a new dimension to the game. All 3 characters have new ways of traversing the map. Really great to see it. I do have some interesting thoughts about that, but overall, the new characters are looking really good. And a new addition is that you don't gain the Pyro Traveler through the waypoints, which is the traditional way. I assume it would happen later in the story, but it's pretty weird how they had to point that out specifically. Something to just remember. We do have new artifact sets, which will basically be applied to all the new character stats in Natlan. There's a specific feature that applies to Natlan characters, so this is basically going to be a buff towards them. So that's the artifact set. to get if you're pulling for some of the new Natlan featured characters. We have a new 5-star weapon, Fang of the Mountain King. Looks pretty interesting. We have a 5-star weapon to go along with Morlani. Obviously, the 2 featured characters, the 2 featured 5-star weapons. New forgeable weapons. Very nice to see. And the 2 new bosses. A big fat green rabbit thing and a dragon. That dragon does look quite cool, I won't lie. I can't wait to actually have a bit more variety of the bosses. I mean, we already have quite a bit of variety already, so I'm not really complaining. Alongside 3 new enemy variants, new quests like I've said, and new event. I think alongside we also have a web event in which you can get some in-game rewards. That's pretty nice to see. Before we get into some of the big quality of life changes, which is going to literally change Genshin Impact forever, we got to talk about some of the gameplay mechanics. Something that's already been shown already is the new ways to traverse around Natlan. I assume this will be similar to Fontaine, where you have new ways to explore this new area. It is a shame that these things aren't usually carried over to the other regions. However, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm 90% sure that these will be Natlan specific because that's how they designed the game. And I really wish we can go back to some of the older areas with these new gameplay mechanics. That will really do wonders for the game, but that's a different video. So we have these different Pokemon looking things, a little green Pokemon and a blue Pokemon and a little Geo Pokemon. Very cool. It's very original. I do like to see it. I feel like they're trying to keep pace with Wuthering Waves a tiny bit, because the exploration in Wuthering Waves and Genshin just feels worlds apart. So I feel like they're trying to go that route, trying to make it flow a lot better, trying to make the exploration feel more modern. It is quite difficult because Genshin, I think, was released so long ago. Development started in 2019, so you're thinking about 6 years ago. So maybe this is how they approach that problem. I don't really know. So doing what they can with the game being made in 2019, this is probably the best approach they have at the moment, but who knows, maybe I'm just coping. But they do look pretty fun, and they definitely seem like they'll make exploring Natlan pretty enjoyable, because I think we are all tired of the same cycle of exploration. With this new gameplay mechanics, I'm still excited to explore the new region without it feeling like the same old thing again and again. If only we could apply this to the old regions, like I said, but whatever. And a small change that I really do like is the Night Soul's Blessings, and the specific reason why I like it is because your characters get a nice little glow whenever they have this buff applied to them. I'm not sure what the specific buff is, but basically it's a character buff. But now we can actually see when you have the buff active, because I don't like it when you're trying to balance all these buffs that you get, but you really have very limited indication whether you have the buff applied or not. Not a major thing, but I like to see. It's pretty cool, and it'll actually encourage me to actually use the new characters more. And on the note of them being more generous, we actually get more rewards for future Archon quests. So it seems like the generosity bar for Genshin has increased a lot. So it appears we're going to get 500 Primo Gems on completion of the Archon quest, I think. And then also on top of that, we typically get the 1 haul as well. So the number of free Primo Gems has risen quite a lot. So alongside the Archon quest, the character quests also have increased Primo Gems. And, we have the typical quick start. And we have an improved system where we can easily locate the resources. That's something I've been wanting for a while. It's not perfect, but it gives you an approximation of where the items are and how many there are in each area. Very nice to see. The interactive map is still going to be a must. But this is pretty nice to quickly identify where the stuff are instead of having to zoom in and find each individual name, because I can't remember all the locations in Genshin. There's just too many, especially as the game gets bigger. Definitely a very nice feature to have, and I'm not going to complain about that at all. And one other nice feature I do like is the increased drops for enemies. I think it's for certain enemies, but the one enemy I love to see is the Abyss Mages, because, oh boy, I feel like half the thing I do in Genshin is kill Abyss Mages, and some of these guys can be incredibly annoying. I remember I used to play as Chungus a lot back in the day. All I used to do was watch Chungus get frozen repeatedly. Basically made it unplayable because I always needed to kill those damn Abyss Mages. But hey, now we don't need to kill as many. But what's wrong? I don't really have a problem with Abyss Mage genocide anyway, so still good. Now, we have other smaller changes, like we can customize the battle pass so we get more rewards to get the stuff that you actually want and need. And alongside that, we have increased Primo Gems in exploration, I believe. I think specifically the Primo Gems reward added to Natlan Statues of the Seven and Shrines of Depth. So basically more Primo Gems to get from, I think it's Natlan specific. So from the Shrine of Depths and the Statue of the Seven, just a little bit of extra primos. I like to see how they're going. I feel a bit sus how much primo gems they're trying to give out. It's all I feel like I'm being love bombed by Genshin. I feel like they're trying to manipulate me at the moment. With all that out the way, let's talk about some of the massive, and I mean massive, quality of life changes. So first of all, the pull rate has increased, something I never thought we would ever see in Genshin. And it's absolutely wild that they are able to change this, as honestly, I thought from the beginning of the game to the end, this is something we're not going to see change. We saw the weapon banner change, and that is again something that has been changed. I'd never thought I would ever see the pull rates for the limited characters change. The TLDR is that it's now a 55-45%. So 55% chance to get the characters, 45 to obviously get this, not get the limited character. It's a bit confusing, but to break it down, if you see a gold shooting star, it means you're pulling a 5-star, and that could either go one of two ways. You get the featured character, or you get a standard character. But if you see a pink light, that means you got the limited character right or wait. That's the simplest way to explain it, because I've seen so much confusion on the internet. Alongside talking about wishes, we also have changes to the weapon banner. It's no longer a scam, or it's slightly less of a scam because, oh boy, was it ridiculous. You only need one fate point to guarantee the weapon, so I think you need it. I think it's more close to how a traditional 50-50 works, instead of being absolutely ridiculous. However, I probably still not going to pull on the weapon banner, but it's very nice to see, and it actually makes it somewhat usable. Actually, I lie. With this change, I probably will try pulling on the weapon banner. It's not abysmal like it used to be. Let's talk about another massive change. We have access to a new world level, which is absolutely huge. I assume this would make the game harder, as each world level increases the game difficulty, but also increases the drops, which means we don't need to keep spamming the same bosses to get the same rewards. Instead, we can increase the world level, and then we get more boss drops, which also means our resin goes further, which makes it faster to build characters. With so many characters in this game, and an increased need thanks to the new endgame mode, I really love to see this, because killing the boss like 20 times over gets old really fast, and we can put our resin in other places. So more drops, I mean, it's honestly great. I'm seeing so many things that I never ever thought Genshin were going to implement. World level 9, changing to pull rate, and a free 5-star. Yes, we are getting a free 5-star on every anniversary. It's absolutely mental. What is going on at Genshin headquarters to be this generous? Genshin is kind of known as the gacha game that is like one of the least generous, especially compared to everything else on the market. We never get that much free stuff, and they're very stingy with primos and how everything works in the game. But suddenly overnight, I woke up and it's like the entire structure at miHoYo has changed. The entire philosophy has changed. After being ignored for many years, I'm in disbelief. How on earth are we getting a free 5-star? That was just a meme at this point. And it does raise a few flags in my head as to why they are doing all of this. What is the big deal? Is there alarms going off in miHoYo headquarters? Like, the thing is, from my perspective, is that as much as people hate Genshin and they really try to bash on the game, Genshin will always be successful. It is too big to fail, basically. It has the audience, it's always bringing in new players constantly, and the game will always stay afloat. I don't think games like Wuthering Waves and all these other new games coming out to compete it will put a dent in Genshin, especially not in the near future. I was a big Genshin fan, and then I fell out of love with the game, as I kind of felt like Hoyoverse was using us as a bit of a money machine. It was just basically using Genshin as a money printer, and it rubbed me the wrong way as I saw stagnant game development. It's like they made the game, and they didn't actually want to expand on the game further. Now, to be honest, a lot of these changes past like a month or so aren't going to feel as exciting, but the fact that they're willing to go back and actually implement changes is absolutely huge news, especially changes that I thought would never ever happen or never see the light of day. So another big change we got to talk about is changes to the artifact system. We can now salvage our artifacts to use for XP, then be put back into our artifacts. So it's a nice change to have, but the biggest change, the absolute biggest change, is that we can change the main stat and the substat for our artifacts in Genshin. Now, of course, this is going to be some form of limited resource, so, you know, how probably similar to how crowns work, where you only get given a few. So you can't just obviously do it whenever you want, because that will honestly kill the grind for a lot of people. And then, people spend like lifetimes grinding artifacts in Genshin, so they're not going to like just remove all of that hard work. And I can only assume how some people who spend literal lifetimes rolling for the perfect artifact must feel. I just think it's super interesting how they're finally doing some changes. And I believe we also have new difficulty. I think we also have new changes to the new endgame that they added recently as well. So it's good to see them actually expanding on this. With all this being said, you can easily tell why it's huge news. No wonder they had 2 hours to talk about all of this, because honestly, this is some game-changing stuff we're seeing here. Not just here, just if they follow this philosophy, Genshin really can grow to be so much better than it is now. However, some people do think it's too little too late. I would like to be a tiny bit more optimistic here, and I'm gonna watch Genshin 5.0 quite actively, as I'm quite interested to see how this will affect the game moving forward. Are they going to keep this up, or is this a one-and-done situation? Now, the reason I'm thinking about this a lot is because Dawei made an appearance in the Chinese live stream. So this was different than the EN live stream, where he basically talked about some struggles him and the game company had. Some of the development team, apparently they were receiving a lot of criticism, which, from our side, the EN side, it's true. Genshin's been kind of going through it the last few years, like I said. It's been going through a rough patch where a lot of people are speaking out against Genshin. Genshin has kind of gathered a very big hate crowd. It's gathered a large amount of Genshin antis. People who just watch the live streams to just dunk on the game. It appears that they've admitted to actually caring about this and seeing the criticism that they got, and saying that this has caused them obviously some anxiety, some confusion, and just overall confusion with the direction that they're going in, and they want to go back to the basics. Now, what does this mean? Well, I don't really know, but some people have debated whether he was genuine or not, because he was seen tearing up and crying on stage. And I did read some funny comments for like, the poor guy's crying, at least he has like a wad of cash to wipe away his tears. I mean, we could take it however you want. Some people would try to assume it's a bit of manipulation. I don't think so. I do think the guy is genuine, because at the end of the day, he didn't have to come on stage and he didn't have to say what he said. It was going to be successful with or without the updates that they've given us, because they've proven to get away with doing whatever they want and still getting players. So this seems like a bit of a love letter to the players, saying we've listened and we're sorry about what's been going on and we're actually going to make it better. Is it too little too late? Well, we'll have to wait and see, as I think with a massive statement and the massive changes they're bringing, a lot of eyes are going back to Genshin, and a lot of the community who turned away from the game will be looking at it and be willing to give it a second chance. At least not pick up the free 5-star and then, maybe try out Natlan and then see if they want to stay. So I do think this is a second wind of Genshin, and it has been a long time coming. And with the interview with Dawei's speech on stage, I do generally think that they do want to fix the game and improve it. Some people may say they just got their money's worth out of Genshin to make their company as successful as it is, make Honkai Star Rail and Zenless Zone Zero. But what I think is that, and to be honest, yes, that is correct. But at the end of the day, like I said before, he didn't need to come on and say all about that and tell his story, how he was speaking with players of Genshin Impact and how it was very important to him and he wants to go back to the game's roots. Because if you want to subscribe to the idea that it's too little too late and what was even the point, then at this point, Genshin's already been extremely successful. They could probably let the game die and Hoyoverse will still be successful for many years to come, purely off the backs of Genshin Impact. But they're willing to accept that the development team have been having issues and they've had problems, and they want to go back and improve the game for its players. A lot of people think Genshin Impact is on its way out because we've been through so many regions and the game is getting quite old now. How can they keep this going? But I do like to think that they're actually trying to put more effort into the game, and this is a massive W for Genshin Impact and its community, as it's a massive sign that the devs care. Because a big issue has been that the devs don't care about us as players, and they only see us as wallets, because we talk about our feedback, we talk about our problems, we talk about what we want, and we get ignored just so they can make the game more accessible for newer players, which obviously feels very disrespectful for the people who made Genshin what it is. It's long-term players, who've been playing the game since day one. Maybe they didn't make the game for what it is, but obviously if you've been with the game for a long time, you want to see some support. And this live stream is exactly what people want. But it is 4 years down the road and seeing this, so I do appreciate if this is a bit controversial. But regardless, we are seeing history, like I said in the beginning of the video. We're going to have to just sit back and watch how this plays out. Now, Genshin 5.0 is coming out the end of August, so we have to wait and see, just to see what exactly is going on with Genshin and how well it will perform. Sorry for the long rant, it was a bit of a longer video. Hope you guys enjoyed and make sure to subscribe. Now, if you don't mind, I have to go back to playing Genshin because I'll be honest with you. I haven't played it. I haven't played Genshin in like 2 months. I've been playing Wuthering Waves. Please forgive me. And of course, because I'm the Genshin boycott guy, I have still not spent a dime in Genshin since making that statement. And for anyone that cares, I am still free to play in Genshin, and I will reserve my wallet until I see like substantial changes to the endgame system or more appreciation to endgame players. As this stuff is still nice, but the only real big difference to people playing long term is the artifact system, in my honest opinion, and the world level 9. I would like to see a bit more from the developers to see if this behavior is not a one and done thing to grab players back for 5.0 release and then basically ignore us again. So until I see substantial changes, I know this is fairly substantial, so don't be annoyed at me, guys. I will still be free to play until I feel like the game evolves a bit more. And I really appreciate the more rewards, but I really want to see more gameplay features targeted towards endgame experience. Pretty much it, guys. Now, with all that being said, I gotta get back to writing my thesis because I'm cooked. See ya.